What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Broke and Boosted. Today I'm going to be installing a boost gauge and fabbing up a mounting panel to get it mounted along with the AFR gauge that I installed in the last video. So what I have here is an AEM True Boost. And the True Boost is actually a combination electronic boost controller and boost gauge, but I'm only going to be using the boost gauge feature. I got a really good deal on this thing, 50 bucks. And it did not include the electronic boost control solenoid, but that's okay because I'm going to be using manual boost control in this car anyways, so it was actually a pretty good deal for me. As far as the wiring up of this gauge, it's super similar to the wideband, so I'm not going to actually cover in the video wiring up of the gauge. If you're unsure on how to do that, check out the wideband install video. I'll have a link in the description for you. Now, obviously how this differs from the wideband is what we're monitoring. We're monitoring boost, and boost is a very, very important thing to keep track of. If your boost goes too high, you are creating a very dangerous situation for your engine. Not good. You can do very serious damage if the boost goes too high. If the boost is too low, you're getting walked on by Mustangs, and that's not what this build is all about. So obviously it's very important to monitor. Boost can also be an indicator of several problems. You can use the boost gauge like a kind of like a troubleshooting resource. If you're spooling up really slow, you might have an exhaust manifold leak. If your boost is just too low, you may have a boost leak somewhere. If the boost is going too high, you might have a wastegate signal line leak or crack, something like that. So it's really just a useful tool. And in this car, I'm going to be starting out with very, very low boost, only a couple pounds, as I get the car kind of tuned up. And I'll gradually raise the boost to see kind of what it can really handle. But that's the key thing for me, is I just need an accurate reading of what that boost level is at all times, and that's why I feel like the boost gauge is so important to have in a turbo car. So the last part of your install is actually hooking up the vacuum line that comes right off the back of the gauge. You're just going to come right through your firewall, and it's got to be hooked up anywhere post throttle body, which is pretty much anywhere on your intake manifold. Several vacuum lines coming off the intake manifold. A lot of Miatas actually have this one spare port, and you can actually use that for your boost gauge. If you don't have the spare port, you can just get one of these plastic tees from one of your local auto parts stores and just tap into an existing vacuum line. Anywhere on the intake manifold will do. So now that we got our gauges all hooked up and functional, they're just kind of sitting in there flopping around all ricer style, and that's not really like me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to fab up a nice mounting plate to get those things mounted clean. First thing you got to do, remove your center console here. You got a couple Phillips head screws in there, one right there, one on either side here. Once I get it all loosened and take the shifter off, I just kind of pop it up. And just kind of stick it out of the way. We just needed to get access to the screws that are holding this in, which there are none. That's beautiful. Next up, you gotta pop out your vents. Just use a Phillips head screwdriver, a little rag to protect the ring there, and they pop out just like that. Then you can see we got Phillips head screws up in the top, and those are the last two screws to get your tombstone out here. Once you actually get the tombstone free, you will have to reach behind and unplug your hazard switch there. Okay, so what I have here is the tombstone from the car, and basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making a little plate that fits right in there, and it's going to have a couple holes punched in it, and we're going to put our gauges in there. So normally, when this is in the car, you have your little item carrying thing, and then you got your mean bumps sitting up there on top. So with the tombstone still installed, you need to measure from the floor of your tombstone here up to your deck and get a good measurement on that, because you don't want to make the plate so tall that when you go to put your tombstone back on, it doesn't fit over your deck. So make that measurement. On my car it's 2.5 inches. I'm going to make the plate about 2.25 inches tall because I want to make sure the tombstone fits back on. Then you just got to measure your width I get about 7 1/8. I'm actually going to make the plate a little bit too wide because I want it to be an extremely snug fit, and the material I'm using is going to be easy to file down. So I'm going to make the plate a little bit too wide. I'll file it to size. We're going to stick it in there. I'm going to epoxy it in, punch a couple holes in it, and we'll mount our gauges. Now, there are a few different ways to do this. You can come up with your own version. You know, if you don't want to epoxy something into your tombstone, you could devise a more temporary system. Sorry, I was getting distracted. Haggard Garage, new video. Had to freaking check it out. They're talking about RC cars, boy! We got any other RC car drifter out there? Okay, back to work. So what I've done here is I've taped out my my plate that I'm going to cut out. And what I've also done is I've measured out, it's kind of hard to see, those little crosses. That's where I'm going to punch the holes for my gauges. And how I'm going to do that is with this 2-inch hole saw. I picked up a complete kit of these things. It was like maybe 20 bucks. Comes with like every different size you could ever need. It's a pretty cool kit. And this 2-inch one cuts out the perfect size hole for the gauges. So I'm going to punch those out real quick, and then I'm going to cut this plate out and we'll start test fitting. Just like that, you got your holes cut for your gauges. Definitely going to take some cleaning up, but that's really easy with a file. You want to use a round edge file like that for filing round holes, so go figure. That's pretty much it. This thing's cleaned up pretty nice. Once you've cleaned up your cuts and actually test fit to make sure the gauge slides in nice and clean, easily, you're ready to cut out the plate. This, my friends, is why you measure twice and cut once. Anyways, it'll work for now. But in all seriousness, I mean, you can paint this thing, put stickers on it, rice it out however you like. Everyone's got their own little creative spice they like to add. That's at least 6 wheel horsepower. The final step, mate. Now, like I said, you don't have to make it permanent like this by epoxying it in. I'm going to be running these gauges permanently, so I don't mind it. But, I mean, you could probably literally tape this plate into place and it would be just fine. So it's kind of up to you on that. Like I said, if you come up with your own creative methods on how to make these things, you know, post up on Instagram, tag me, show me yours. I'd love to see them. Alright guys, so here's our relatively complete gauge panel. It's really dark outside, so I'm not going to show you what it looks like inside the car yet. I'll show you that in the next video. We pretty much got our 2 essential gauges for building any turbo car, boost and AFR. And that's about it. On to the next phase. Alright guys, well that's pretty much it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Just to give you an idea for future videos coming out, I picked up this old China charger. I'm going to be showing you how to rebuild it. I'm going to be doing the 180K maintenance on broken boosted, timing belt, water pump, front main seal, cam seals, all that good stuff. Do a video on that. I'm going to be installing an intercooler on broken boosted. I'm going to be showing you how to drill your oil pan on the car. I know that's very scary to some people. I'm going to try to give you a really in-depth step-by-step process on how to do it as safely as possible. And if you guys have any suggestions, of course, drop them in the comments. Let me know what you guys want to see. Until next time, peace.
The final step, mate.